Serial Binge. On our first installment of the Serial Binge, we're going to talk about Altered Carbon. Is it binge-worthy? Let's take a look. Altered Carbon is a really expensive Netflix original series based on the book by Richard Morgan. No wonder they had to cancel Sense8. This thing clearly cost a lot of money. It takes place in the future. Duh. The year is 2368. 250 years before this, the main character, Takashi Kovacs, is killed and resurrected in his new host body. You see, the world of Altered Carbon is a world where death doesn't matter because everyone has what's called a cortical stack. This is a small disc or wafer-like object that everyone has implanted in the back of their brain, which acts as a hard drive for their consciousness. And so long as the stack is intact, Jill can become Jack or Jacqueline or Tom, Dick, or Harry. Joel Kinnaman plays the latest version or sleeve of Kovacs. Kovacs, who in his past life was something called an envoy, which is a super elite, highly trained and disciplined soldier that specializes in being re-sleeved regularly, and is re-sleeved and pressed into service by uber-rich Lawrence Bancroft, played by the naturally creepy James Purefoy. Bancroft offers Kovacs his freedom and a decent fortune to determine who murdered him. The most interesting thing about Carbon is the world itself. Visually, it borrows heavily from Blade Runner, and even a bit from the recent Ghost in the Shell movie, one of the best things that movie did well. But just as cool as the world itself, the story does an awesome job of crafting a society that has evolved around the concept that death is an inconvenience and not permanent. Sleeves are regarded as pretty much disposable, and immortality is taken for granted. But even then, you can see how the rich are poised to take advantage of this system by getting their pick of sleeves or even creating clones of their own birth sleeve and coming back as younger versions of themselves. So what works about Carbon? I pretty much have to say the performances. Kinnaman does a decent job of playing Kovacs. He is only one of 4 actors to actually play the role. As I mentioned earlier, he is the latest sleeve. He nails the brooding, grumpy, I'm a dick attitude that Kovacs has by the time we meet him in the story. The other actors who play the character are Asian. The most notable contribution is by William Lee as Birth Kovacs, whose flashback sequence gives the character some emotional backstory, if not context. Purefoy, as I mentioned, is a slimy son of a gun as Bancroft. Martha Higuereta as Kristen Ortega is one of the best things about Carbon. She doesn't seem like it at first, though. I thought I was going to be begging for her to die. But by mid-season, her character grows into a somewhat complex and sympathetic character. And she's not hard to look at. No one is bad, although some do not stand out as much as others. Eto Asando is decent as Vernon Elliott, and Kristen Lehman makes an impression as Bancroft's wife, because she a hoe. Renee Elise Goldsberry also has some screen presence as Quellcrest Falconer, the leader of the envoys. The standouts are Matt Bydell, who plays 3 different characters, all of them brilliantly, especially as Ortega's grandmother. Also, Cliff Chamberlain plays Elliot's wife, Ava. His performance was a high point for me. He is every bit as successful as Jack Black in Jumanji, but he's more subtle and just as committed. But Chris Connor is Poe. He was my favorite character, hands down. He had the most interesting arc as the AI of the hotel that Kovacs stays in. Where Carbon falls off is the main story. It turns out that Kovacs' long-lost sister, played by Deechin Locken, I hope I got that right, who used to be an envoy, like her brother, but she is freakishly fixated and obsessed on her brother, like in a Cersei, Jaime Lannister, creepy, nasty, Angelina Jolie, I really love my brother kind of way. And after a couple of centuries of amassing a fortune of her own, she sets up this elaborate, convoluted plot to have Kovacs thawed from the freezer, purchased by Bancroft, and then, of course, purchase his freedom, and the two of them could live happily ever after as man and sister. Freaky. And it's mostly disappointing that she ends up to be the main villain. But that doesn't sink the series. It works largely because of the world it depicts and deals responsibly with the question, what if we could cheat death? And if we could, should we? Carbon doesn't address the subject any more or less than it has to. Otherwise, Carbon is a very well-produced series. And as a series, Altered Carbon is worthy of the binge. Well, those are my thoughts. Definitely want to know what you think. Please leave your comments below. Let me know if you liked it, if you didn't, if you're in the middle, did you think it was meh? And as always, if you want to see more content here, please click the subscribe button, and you too can get spoiled. We'll catch you next time.